We're told that fate is kind, that the universe conspires to bring soulmates together in moments of serendipity and starlight, that when you meet the one, you'll simply know, like recognition striking through your chest like lightning. But when you wake up in a stranger's cabin with burns covering your arms, your entire life reduced to ash behind you, and 3 massive wolves staring at you from the corner of the room, you learn the devastating truth. Fate doesn't arrive with clarity. It arrives with confusion, terror, and a choice you're not remotely prepared to make. Because here's what the fairy tales don't tell you: sometimes your soulmate saves your life, and you have absolutely no idea which one of them it was. Sometimes the bond that's supposed to feel like coming home feels like drowning. And sometimes the person destined to love you has already decided you're better off never knowing the truth. My name is Cora Whitlock, and I should have died in that fire. The fact that I didn't? That's where this story stops being about rescue and starts being about something far more complicated. Something about 3 brothers, an ancient bloodline, and a bond that was supposed to be sacred until it became a weapon. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the night everything I knew turned to smoke. Before we dive into Cora's story, if you love tales of rejected mates finding their power, check out my book titled Rejected by the Alpha, available now. Link in the description. Now, let's get back to the fire that changed everything. Chapter 1. Ashes and Smoke. The smell hit me first. Not the acrid stench of burning wood or melting plastic. I'd already become numb to that. No, this was different. This was the smell of failure, of a life that had been barely hanging on, finally collapsing into cinders. I stood in the parking lot of the Moonridge Apartments, though apartments was a generous term for the converted motel on the edge of town where people like me ended up. People who couldn't shift. People who didn't fit anywhere in a world run by wolves. The building was fully engulfed now. Flames licked out of 3rd-story windows like hungry tongues. My window. My room. Everything I owned was in there, which admittedly wasn't much. Second-hand clothes, a laptop held together with duct tape, 17 notebooks filled with half-finished stories I'd never let anyone read. And the picture. The only picture I had left of my mother. Everyone out? A firefighter barked at someone behind me. Building's been condemned for months. Another voice answered. Mostly empty. Maybe some squatters. Squatters. That's what I'd become. 26 years old. And I was a squatter in a building that should have been demolished years ago. I should have left when the first alarm went off. Should have grabbed my emergency bag, the one I'd kept packed since I was 16, since the night my father told me I was a genetic dead end and threw me out. Should have run. Instead, I'd tried to save the notebooks. Stupid. So incredibly stupid. The flames had spread faster than I could have imagined. 1 minute I was shoving papers into my backpack. The next, the doorway was a wall of fire and my escape route was gone. I'd made it to the window, 3 stories up, smoke filling my lungs, and I'd actually thought, this is how it ends. Alone, unmated, childless, forgotten. The fall should have killed me. I remember the moment of surrender, that strange calm that comes when you stop fighting. I remember the window glass shattering, the rush of cold air, the certainty that the concrete below would be the last thing I ever felt. I don't remember hitting the ground. What I do remember is waking up here, in this cabin that smells like pine and old leather, with bandages wrapped around my forearms, and 3 men standing in the doorway arguing in low, tense voices. Can't stay here, one of them was saying. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair pulled back in a knot. His voice carried authority. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than leaving her at a hospital where anyone could find her? This voice was rougher. Roar. The speaker was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, radiating barely contained violence. They'll smell it on her. You know they will. Then what do you suggest, Cade? The third voice was quieter, measured. We can't keep her prisoner. Can't we? That's when I'd sat up too fast. And all 3 of them had gone completely still. Predator still. Wolf still. That had been 10 minutes ago. Now I was sitting on a leather couch that probably cost more than my entire year's rent, wrapped in a blanket that was softer than anything I'd ever owned, staring at 3 of the most beautiful and terrifying men I'd ever seen. The one with the man bun spoke first. Miss Whitlock, I'm Jameson Thorne. These are my brothers, Cade and River. He gestured to the violent one and the quiet one respectively. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. You have second-degree burns on your arms, smoke inhalation damage to your lungs, and a concussion from your fall. You should be in a hospital. But I'm not, I said. My voice came out hoarse, damaged. Why? The brothers exchanged a look. A whole conversation seemed to happen in that glance, the kind of silent communication that only came from shared blood and shared secrets. Cade pushed off the doorframe. He was all sharp angles and contained rage, like a blade barely sheathed. Because if we'd taken you to the hospital, you'd be dead by morning. Cade, Jameson warned. She deserves the truth. Cade's eyes pale gold, unnatural, locked onto mine. You're not Pack, Cora. You're human, or close enough. No shifting ability, no protection, no status. You know what that makes you in this world. I did. God, I did. Pray, he confirmed. And someone set that fire specifically to kill you. The room tilted. Or maybe that was just my damaged brain trying to process his words. That's insane. Why would anyone want to kill me? I'm nobody. You're not nobody. River spoke for the first time, and his voice was like dark honey, smooth, rich, dangerous. He was the quietest of the three, but somehow the most unsettling. While his brothers projected authority and violence, River projected knowing, like he could see straight through my skin to the broken parts underneath. Your Whitlock bloodline, dormant shifter genes, rare enough to be valuable. Valuable to who? Another exchanged look. Jameson sat down in the chair across from me, close enough that I could smell him wood smoke and something wild, something that made my hindbrain scream both danger and safe simultaneously. There are collectors, people who trade in shifters with rare genetics. They prefer their merchandise, compliant. Setting a fire, making it look like an accident, rescuing you at the last moment, it creates gratitude. Dependency. Makes you easier to control. My stomach turned to ice. You think someone set that fire to save me? To make me owe them? We know they did, Cade said flatly. We were tracking a trafficking ring. Got a tip they were moving on a target tonight. We didn't know the target was you until... He stopped abruptly. Until what? Silence. Heavy and loaded. River moved closer, crouching down so he was at eye level with me. This close. I could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could see the way his pupils dilated slightly when he looked at me, the way his jaw tightened like he was holding something back. Until we pulled you out of that building, he said softly, and discovered something unexpected. What? I whispered, but none of them answered. Instead, Jameson stood abruptly. You need rest. We'll discuss this more tomorrow. You're safe here. The cabin is warded, protected. No one can find you. I'm a prisoner, I said. Not a question. You're protected, Jameson corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Cade smiled then, and it wasn't a nice smile. Only one way to find out, sweetheart. Try to leave. Subscribe if you believe Cora deserves to know which wolf is bound to her soul, because some truths are worth the danger of discovery. They left me alone after that. All except River, who lingered in the doorway, his expression unreadable. The notebooks, he said quietly. The ones you went back for, what's in them? I pulled the blanket tighter around myself. Stories. Nothing important. Important enough to die for. I wasn't thinking clearly. Or you were thinking too clearly. He tilted his head, studying me. You write about other worlds, other lives, places where people like you, people who don't fit, find where they belong. My breath caught. How do you... I read them, while you were unconscious. He said it without apology. You're good, Cora. Really good. The kind of good that makes people feel less alone. I should have been angry about the invasion of privacy. Should have demanded he explain himself. Instead, all I could think about was the fact that someone had read my words, my secret, vulnerable, desperate words, and hadn't laughed, hadn't dismissed them. Why did you save me? I asked. River's expression shifted. For just a moment, I saw something raw flash across his face, something that looked almost like pain. Because, he said quietly. Sometimes the universe puts the right person in the right place at the right time, and sometimes you have to choose whether to honor that or destroy it. Then he was gone, and I was alone with the smell of smoke still clinging to my hair, and the certain knowledge that nothing about this rescue was what it seemed. I touched my chest, where my heart was beating too fast. Somewhere in this cabin were 3 brothers who'd saved my life, and one of them, according to every instinct I had, was tied to me by a bond I'd stopped believing in years ago. The question was, which one? And the even bigger question, why did they all seem determined to make sure I never found out? Chapter 2. The Mark of Fate. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that room, flames crawling up the walls like living things, smoke choking the air from my lungs. And worse, much worse, was the moment of falling, that endless second of surrender when I'd accepted that this was it. This was how my unremarkable life would end, except it hadn't ended. 3 wolves had pulled me from the fire, 3 brothers who looked at me like I was simultaneously precious and dangerous, 3 men who were hiding something. I sat up on the couch, wincing as the movement pulled at the burns on my forearms. Someone, River, probably, based on the careful precision of the wrapping, had changed the bandages while I'd been unconscious. The burns weren't as bad as they could have been. 2nd degree, Jameson had said. Painful but healable, unlike the rest of me. I'd been called broken so many times in my life that I'd started to believe it. Broken because I couldn't shift. Broken because my body had decided at 16 that it would never bear children, some genetic defect the pack doctors had diagnosed with clinical detachment, before suggesting my father reconsider his bloodline investment. Broken because I'd been cast out by my own family, traded away like defective merchandise. The Whitlock name meant something once. Old bloodline, pure genetics, the kind of lineage that should have produced strong shifters. Instead, it produced me. Dormant genes, a useless womb, and an inconvenient tendency to survive things that should have killed me. The cabin was dark, except for the dying embers in the fireplace. I could hear wind moving through pine trees outside, the occasional creak of old wood settling. No voices. The brothers had retreated somewhere else in the house. I could sense them, though, feel their presence like pressure against my skin. One of them was my fated mate. The thought was absurd. I'd given up on fate years ago, around the same time I'd given up on pack, family, and the fantasy that I might somehow belong anywhere. Fated mates were for shifters, for people with wolves who could recognize their other half through scent and instinct and ancient magic. I was human, dormant, broken, and yet, I pressed my hand to my chest, where something had been humming since I woke up. Not painful, exactly, more like awareness, like a compass needle trembling toward magnetic north, unable to settle on a direction because there were 3 sources of pull instead of 1. You feel it. I jerked around. River stood in the doorway to what I assumed was the kitchen, backlit by soft light. He was barefoot, wearing dark jeans and a thermal shirt that clung to a frame that was leaner than his brother's but no less powerful. His dark hair fell past his shoulders, and those gray eyes were fixed on me with unsettling intensity. Feel what? I tried to sound casual. Failed miserably. He moved closer, silent as smoke. The bond. It's confusing, isn't it? Like trying to hear one voice in a crowd of 3. My heart hammered. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. But he said it gently, without judgment. He sat down in the chair Jameson had occupied earlier, folding his long frame into it with unconscious grace. You've felt it since you woke up. That pull. That sense that something fundamental has shifted in your universe. I wanted to deny it. Wanted to laugh it off as concussion-induced delusion. But River was looking at me like he already knew the truth. And I was so tired of lying. Which one? I whispered. Which one of you is it? River's expression shuddered. Does it matter? Does it? I stared at him. Of course it matters. If what you're saying is true, if there really is a fated bond, then yes, it matters. That's the whole point. The point, River said quietly, is that you're alive. The point is that you're safe. Everything else is complicated. Complicated how? He was quiet for a long moment, studying me. Then, "What do you know about the Thorn bloodline?" The change of subject threw me. "Just rumors. Your family is old, powerful. You control most of the territory in the northern ranges. We're alphas," River said, "all three of us. Jameson is the eldest, technically the pack leader. Cade is our enforcer. And he paused. "I'm the one they send when diplomacy fails and violence isn't the answer. I read people, find their pressure points, convince them that cooperation is in their best interests. You're a manipulator. I prefer negotiator." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "But yes, I manipulate. It's what I'm good at." "Is that what you're doing now? Manipulating me?" "If I were manipulating you, Cora, you wouldn't know it." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm trying to give you information, trying to help you understand why this situation is unprecedented." "Then help me understand." River exhaled slowly. "In our bloodline, fated mates are rare, maybe one in every 3 generations. When the bond manifests, it's absolute, undeniable. The wolf knows its mate instantly scent, sight, soul, recognition. There's no ambiguity." "Okay," I said slowly. So when we pulled you from that fire, all 3 of us felt it." His gray eyes locked onto mine. "All 3 of us recognized you as mate." The room tilted again. Or maybe I'd stopped breathing. That's not possible." "No," River agreed. "It's not. And yet," I shook my head, trying to process. "Maybe you're wrong. Maybe it was just, I don't know, adrenaline, or the rescue, or, we're not wrong." His voice was flat, certain. "Cade nearly tore apart the traffickers we caught because the thought of anyone touching you made him homicidal. Jameson can barely be in the same room with you without his wolf demanding he claim you, and I." He stopped, jaw tightening. "And you? I can hear your heartbeat from 3 rooms away," he said quietly. "I know when you're scared, when you're in pain, when you're lying. I've read every word you've ever written, and I see you, Cora. Not the broken girl your pack threw away. The real you. The one who survives, who creates beauty out of ash." My throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to me like that. No one had ever seen me like that. "So what does it mean?" I asked. "How is it possible that all 3 of you—" "We don't know." Frustration edged into his voice. "We've consulted pack historians, researched bloodline records. There's no precedent for this. 1 mate, 3 wolves. It defies everything we understand about how bonds work." "Maybe the bond is wrong," I said. "Maybe I'm not actually anyone's mate. Maybe this is just some kind of mistake." "It's not a mistake." The certainty in his voice was absolute. "What we feel is real. The question is which of us the bond is actually meant for." Drop a comment if you've ever felt caught between what fate promises and what reality delivers, because Cora's about to learn they're not always the same thing. The implications crashed over me in waves. 3 alphas, 1 impossible bond, and me dormant, broken, completely out of my depth. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Do you, test it somehow? Figure out which one of you is the real match?" "That's what Jameson wants to do," River said. "Controlled exposure. Spend time with each of us separately, see if the bond clarifies." And what does Cade want?" River's expression darkened. "Cade wants to mark you immediately, claim you before anyone else can. He's not interested in testing or waiting. He's interested in making sure you're protected and bound to this pack permanently." "That's insane." "That's Cade." River shrugged. "He's not exactly known for patience or subtlety." "And what do you want?" I asked. River went very still. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I want you to have a choice. Real choice, not one made under duress or gratitude or fear. I want you to know all 3 of us really know us before you decide anything. And if I decide I don't want any of you," pain flashed across his face, so quick I almost missed it, "then we let you go. We make sure you're safe, set you up somewhere far from here with a new identity, and we never contact you again." "You do that? Even if one of you is really my fated mate?" "Fate," River said slowly. is not the same as choice. And I've seen what happens when wolves try to force a bond that isn't wanted. It destroys everyone involved. He stood, moving toward the door. Get some rest, Cora. Tomorrow, Jameson will want to talk to you about our proposal. Proposal? Stay with us. 3 months. Get to know us individually. See if the bond clarifies. At the end, you choose one of us, or none of us. Your decision will be final and binding. And if I say no? If I want to leave now? River turned back, and for the first time, I saw the wolf beneath his skin. Saw the predator that lurked behind those careful, controlled eyes. Then you leave, he said softly. But understand this, whoever set that fire will try again. The trafficking ring we interrupted has deep connections. If you walk out that door without our protection, you won't survive a week. So, I'm a prisoner after all. No, he met my eyes. You're someone caught between survival and freedom, trying to figure out which one matters more. I don't envy you that choice. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with the dying fire and the impossible weight of what he'd told me. 3 wolves, 1 bond, 3 months to figure out which one fate had chosen or to walk away from all of them. I touched my chest again, feeling that strange pull, that compass needle spinning uselessly. Somewhere in this cabin were 3 men who believed I was their mate. 3 alphas, who could protect me or destroy me with equal ease. And I had no idea which one my soul was crying out for. But I was going to find out. Because the alternative, running, hiding, surviving alone like I'd been doing for 10 years, suddenly felt like a different kind of death. I'd already burned once. Maybe it was time to see what rose from the ashes. Chapter 3. The proposal. Morning came with the smell of coffee and the sound of raised voices. I'd finally fallen asleep sometime before dawn, my body's exhaustion overriding my mind's panic. Now I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I hadn't noticed in the dark, illuminating a space that was far more luxurious than I'd realized. The cabin wasn't really a cabin, it was a lodge. Vaulted ceilings with exposed beams, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking dense forest. Furniture that managed to be both rustic and expensive. This was where powerful people retreated when they wanted privacy. And I was trapped here with 3 alphas who all claimed to feel a mate bond with me. The absurdity of it would have made me laugh if I weren't so terrified. Absolutely not. That was Jameson's voice, coming from somewhere deeper in the house. We're not animals, Cade. We don't just claim her and hope for the best. Why not? Cade's rough voice shot back. Every hour she's unmarked is another hour. She's vulnerable. The bond is there, I can feel it in my goddamn bones. What's the point of waiting? The point is consent. A pause. And clarity. We don't even know which of us the bond is truly meant for. Does it matter? Cade again, aggressive. She's ours. I say we mark her together. All 3 of us. Make it impossible for anyone to touch her. That's not how bonds work. Then maybe it's time we figured out a new way. I should have stayed on the couch. Should have pretended to still be asleep. Avoided this conversation entirely. Instead, I found myself standing and following the voices, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floors. They were in the kitchen, massive, modern, completely at odds with the rustic exterior. Jameson stood at the island, both hands pressed flat against the marble surface like he was physically restraining himself. Cade paced like a caged animal, all coiled violence and barely contained energy. River leaned against the counter by the window, watching his brothers with that unsettling calm. All 3 of them went silent the moment I appeared in the doorway. Don't stop on my account, I said, voice still rough from smoke damage. I'm enjoying hearing my fate discussed like I'm not in the room. Cade had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Slightly. Jameson straightened, his alpha mask sliding back into place. Only River smiled small, knowing, like he'd expected this. Cora. Jameson gestured to one of the stools at the island. Coffee. You should eat something. I should leave. I corrected. But apparently that's not an option. It's always an option. Jameson pulled down a mug, poured coffee without asking how I took it. Black, 2 sugars, somehow he knew. We're not keeping you prisoner. We're offering you protection and information. What you do with both is your choice. I sat down, mostly because my legs were shaky, and I didn't want them to see. The coffee mug appeared in front of me, and I wrapped my hands around it, grateful for the warmth. River told me about your proposal. 3 months. Get to know each of you. Figure out which one the bond is meant for. I looked between them. That's insane, you realize that? Welcome to our lives, Cade muttered. Jameson shot him a look before turning back to me. I know how it sounds. Believe me, we're not exactly thrilled about the situation either. But the facts are these. You're in danger, you have no pack protection, and all 3 of us feel a mate bond with you that shouldn't be possible. We need time to understand what's happening. And what I need doesn't matter. What do you need? River asked quietly. The question caught me off guard. When was the last time anyone had asked me that? When had anyone cared what I needed versus what I could provide? I stopped. Swallowed hard. I need to not be anyone's obligation. I need to understand why someone tried to kill me. I need to figure out how to live in a world that's made it very clear I don't belong anywhere. Silence filled the kitchen, heavy and loaded. Then Jameson said, You belong here. For the next 3 months at least. After that, it's your decision. And if I say no? If I want to leave right now? Cade made a sound low in his throat, half growl, half protest. River's expression went carefully blank. Jameson just looked at me with those dark, unfathomable eyes. Then we set you up somewhere safe, he said. New identity, new city, enough money to start over. We monitor the situation with the trafficking ring and make sure they never find you. And we live with the fact that fate gave us something impossible and we failed to protect it. You mean I'd be condemning one of you to live without your fated mate? Yes, Jameson said simply. But that's not your burden to carry. You didn't ask for this bond any more than we did. I studied him. Jameson was the kind of handsome that should have been intimidating, sharp jawline, aristocratic features, dark hair pulled back to reveal a face that was all clean angles and authority. But there was something in his eyes. Something tired and old and lonely. What happens during these 3 months? I asked. Specifically, you stay here, Jameson said. The lodge is protected wards, security, completely off-grid. No one can find you. You spend time with each of us individually. Meals, conversations, whatever feels natural. We don't force anything, we just give the bond a chance to clarify. And at the end, you choose, River said. One of us, or none of us. If you choose one of us, we complete the mate bond. If you choose none of us, you're free to go with our blessing and protection. What about the 2 you don't choose? I asked. What happens to them? Cade's jaw tightened. Jameson looked away. River was the only one who held my gaze. We survive, he said quietly. The same way you've survived being cast out. The same way anyone survives losing something they were meant to have. We adapt. The pain in his voice was so carefully controlled it made my chest ache. I need some ground rules, I said finally. If I agree to this insanity, Jameson nodded. Name them. 1. No marking without my explicit consent. I don't care how strong the bond feels or how protective you get. My body is mine. Agreed, Jameson said immediately. Cade looked like he wanted to argue but subsided at a look from his brother. 2. I want answers. About the fire. About the trafficking ring. About why someone would target me specifically. No more cryptic warnings or half-truths. Fair, River said. 3. If at any point I want to leave, I leave. No guilt trips. No. But you'll die without our protection manipulation. You give me the resources to survive and you let me go. This time, the silence was longer. More painful. Agreed, Jameson said finally. With one caveat. If you're leaving because you're scared of the bond itself, rather than because you genuinely don't want us, we ask that you tell us why. Give us a chance to address the fear. It was fair. More than fair, actually. Okay, I said. Okay. 3 months. But I have one more condition. What? Cade asked, speaking for the first time since I'd entered. I want to know what happened the night of the fire. Everything. You said you were tracking a trafficking ring, that they were moving on a target. How did you know? How did you find me? And why do all 3 of you feel this bond? The brothers exchanged one of those loaded looks again. Then Jameson said, "The trafficking ring has been operating in this territory for 6 months. They target dormant shifters, people with the genetics, but no wolf. You're rare, valuable. There's a black market for dormant bloodlines." "Why?" "Because," River said, "dormant shifters can still carry the genes, still pass them to offspring. And in some bloodlines, old bloodlines like yours, dormancy isn't permanent. It can be triggered." My blood went cold. "Triggered how?" "Trauma," Cade said bluntly. "Extreme stress, near-death experiences. The wolf that's been sleeping can wake up when survival demands it." I thought about the fall, about the moment of surrender, about waking up here with burns on my arms and 3 wolves looking at me like I was precious. "Did I shift?" I whispered. "In the fire, or when I fell, did something happen?" "No," Jameson said. "You're still dormant. But you survived a 3-story fall with minimal injuries. You survived smoke inhalation that should have killed you. You survived because something in you wanted to survive. That's not normal, Cora, even for dormant shifters. So you think I'm some kind of anomaly?" "We think you're exactly what the traffickers suspected," River said. "Dormant genes on the verge of activation. They were going to take you, trigger your shift through torture, and sell you to the highest bidder. A Whitlock bloodline wolf would be worth millions." Nausea rolled through me. "And you stopped them." "We interrupted them," Jameson corrected. "The ones we caught were low-level operatives. The people who orchestrated this are still out there, still looking for you." "Which brings us back to the bond," Cade said, moving closer. He was intense in a way his brothers weren't, all raw emotion and barely leashed power. "We don't know why all 3 of us feel it, but we do know that from the moment we pulled you from that building, every instinct we have has been screaming to protect you, to claim you, to make sure nothing ever hurts you again." He was close enough now that I could feel the heat radiating off him, could smell smoke and winter and something wild that made my pulse spike. "That's not love," I said quietly. "That's possession." Cade's gold eyes flashed. "Maybe. Or maybe it's what love looks like when you've spent centuries learning that anything precious gets taken away if you're not strong enough to hold on to it." The honesty in his voice stole my breath. 3 months, I said again. "To figure this out. To understand what's real and what's just. Biology." 3 months, Jameson agreed. "Starting now." River pushed off the counter, moving toward the hallway. "I'll show you to your room. You need proper clothes, medical supplies for those burns, and probably about 12 hours of actual sleep." I followed him, grateful for the escape, but Jameson's voice stopped me at the door. "Cora, one more thing." I turned back. "We may not understand why fate gave us this bond," he said quietly, "but I promise you we will do everything in our power to make sure you never regret giving us these 3 months. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat, because the terrifying truth was, I already didn't regret it, and I had no idea what that meant for any of us. Chapter 4. The Wolf Who Sees. River's idea of a room turned out to be an entire suite. I stood in the doorway, staring at a space that was easily 3 times the size of my burned apartment. King-sized bed with a wrought iron frame, sitting area with a stone fireplace, French doors leading to a private balcony overlooking the forest. The attached bathroom had a clawfoot tub that looked like something from a luxury magazine. "This is too much," I said. "This is the smallest guest room we have." River moved past me, opening the closet to reveal clothes I definitely hadn't brought. "I took the liberty of getting you some things. If they don't fit, or you hate them, say so. We can get whatever you need." I picked up a soft gray sweater, ran my fingers over fabric that probably cost more than I used to make in a month. "You got these while I was unconscious?" "I'm efficient. You're invasive." "That too." He turned to face me, and there was no apology in his expression. "I know your size because I carried you from the fire. I know your style because I read your notebooks. You describe what your characters wear with the kind of detail that suggests you pay attention to clothing, even if you can't afford it yourself. And I know you hate charity, but you need help right now. So I'm framing this as practicality rather than kindness. I should have been angry, should have felt violated by how much he knew about me, how much he'd observed while I was unconscious and vulnerable. Instead, I felt seen. "Why do you do that?" I asked quietly. "Do what?" "Read people. Get inside their heads." "Is it a wolf thing or a you thing?" River was quiet for a moment, leaning against the doorframe with that deceptive casualness that made him seem less dangerous than he actually was. "My brothers are warriors," he said finally. "Jameson leads through authority and strategy. Cade leads through strength and intimidation. I don't have their raw power, so I learned to fight differently to understand what people want, what they fear, what motivates them. It makes me useful, makes me valuable to the pack." "It makes you lonely," I said. His gray eyes flickered with surprise. "What makes you say that?" "Because I recognize it. That feeling of always being the observer, never the participant. Of understanding everyone around you but feeling like no one understands you back." I set the sweater down. "It's exhausting, isn't it? Being the one who sees?" River's expression shifted. For just a moment, the careful mask slipped, and I saw something raw underneath. Something that looked like relief. "Yes," he said quietly. "It is." We stood there in weighted silence, and I felt that pull again. That compass needle swinging toward him specifically. Like my body was trying to tell me something my mind didn't want to accept. "Is it you?" I whispered. "The bond, is it you?" River's jaw tightened. "I don't know. When I'm near you, it feels absolute. Like every cell in my body recognizes its other half. But Jameson and Cade feel the same thing. So either we're all delusional, or something unprecedented is happening. What if it's all three of you?" The words came out before I could stop them. What if the bond isn't meant for just one? What if fate decided that I need all of you? Or you all need me? Or, "That's not how it works," River said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Mate bonds are singular. One wolf, one mate. It's biological law. Like how dormant shifters can't suddenly activate their wolves?" I challenged. "Like how someone who's been cast out and written off as genetically worthless can't possibly be worth kidnapping. Laws can be wrong, River. Especially when they're based on assumptions rather than evidence." He stared at me, and I could see the wheels turning behind those intelligent eyes. River was the one who read people, who understood psychology and motivation, but he'd never considered that the rules themselves might be flawed. "That would complicate things exponentially," he said. "Things are already complicated." "Fair point." He pushed off the doorframe, moving toward the balcony. "Come here, I want to show you something." I followed him outside. The morning air was crisp and cold, carrying the scent of pine and earth and something indefinably wild. The forest stretched out in every direction, dense and primal and beautiful. "We're in the heart of Thorn territory," River said, gesturing to the expanse of trees. 15,000 acres of protected land. No human settlements, no roads, no infrastructure. Just pack and pray and the way things have been for centuries. Sounds isolated. It is, intentionally. He leaned against the railing, and I noticed how the morning light caught in his dark hair, turning it almost blue-black. After the wars, the ones between packs that nearly destroyed us all, our grandfather decided the only way to survive was to withdraw. Build strongholds, protect what's ours, and let the rest of the world burn. Sounds paranoid. Sounds like survival. River glanced at me. "You understand that better than most. You've spent 10 years learning how to be invisible, how to take up as little space as possible, because the world taught you that being noticed meant being hurt." My chest tightened. "You don't know anything about me. I know everything about you." He said it without arrogance, just simple truth. "I know your father cast you out the night you turned 16 because the pack doctor confirmed you were dormant and infertile. I know your mother died when you were 12 and you've spent 14 years trying to become the storyteller she was. I know you've lived in 7 different cities, worked 19 different jobs, and never stayed anywhere long enough to form real connections because you're terrified of being rejected again." Tears burned behind my eyes. "Stop. I know you write stories about people finding home because you've never had one. I know you're brilliant and brave and so fucking lonely it radiates off you like heat." He turned to face me fully. "And I know that scares you being seen like this, being known. Because if I know all of this and I still reject you, It'll hurt worse than anything your father ever did. Why are you doing this? My voice cracked. Because, River said softly, the only way this works, the only way any of this works is if you let us see the real you. Not the armor you've built. Not the person who survives by being small and forgettable. The real you. The woman who ran back into a burning building for stories that mattered. The one who's standing here right now, terrified and burned and still asking questions instead of running. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. He was too close. Too knowing. Too everything. I don't know how to do that, I whispered. I don't know how to be seen. Then let me teach you. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers brushed my cheek, gentle as a prayer. 3 months, Cora. Let me show you what it's like to be known, to be valued, to matter to someone beyond what you can provide or produce. The touch sent electricity through my entire body. That pull intensified, sharpening into something almost painful. Is this part of the test? I asked, hating how my voice shook. Time with each brother individually. See who I respond to most? River's thumb traced my cheekbone. This is me being selfish. Taking my turn first because I knew if Jameson got to you, you'd fall for his authority and protection. If Cade got to you, you'd fall for his intensity and passion. But if I get to you first, if I show you that I see you, maybe you'll choose the wolf who understands your mind over the ones who would protect your body. That's manipulative. I warned you I was good at this. You're an asshole. Also true. But he smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Made him look younger, less burdened. Spend the day with me. Let me prove that being seen isn't something to fear. Drop a comment if you've ever been terrified of being truly known, because what River's offering Cora is both salvation and the scariest vulnerability she's ever faced. I should have said no. Should have put distance between us, demanded time to process everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. Instead, I heard myself say, "Okay. Show me." River's smile widened. "Get dressed. Warm clothes. We're going for a walk. In the forest? Is that safe? You're with me," he said simply. "Nothing in these woods would dare touch you." 20 minutes later, I was following River through a forest that felt older than time itself. He'd been right about the clothes, the boots fit perfectly. The thermal layers were exactly what I needed. I hated how much it felt like being taken care of. Hated how much I wanted it. "Tell me about your mother," River said as we walked, his longer stride shortening to match mine. "Why?" "Because she's the ghost you're chasing. The reason you write. I want to understand her." I was quiet for a long moment, focusing on the crunch of frost-covered leaves under my boots. She was a storyteller. Before she mated my father, before she joined his pack, she traveled between territories, sharing old myths and legends. People paid her in food and shelter just to hear her speak. What happened to her? She got sick. Something genetic, aggressive. The pack doctors said if she'd been a shifter instead of dormant, she might have survived. The wolf healing could have fought it. But she was human, essentially. So she just faded. I swallowed hard. She spent her last 6 months telling me stories, teaching me how to make worlds out of words. She said that as long as stories existed, people could survive anything. "Do you believe that?" River asked quietly. "I used to. I ducked under a low branch. Now I think stories are just pretty lies we tell ourselves to make survival feel like living. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. That's reality." River stopped walking. We'd reached a clearing where sunlight broke through the canopy, illuminating a space that felt almost sacred. In the center was an enormous boulder, its surface worn smooth by centuries of weather and time. "This is the heart of our territory," River said. "The place where Thorn Alphas have made their most important decisions for 300 years. Why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to understand something." He turned to face me, and the intensity in his gray eyes made my breath catch. "You think you're broken, worthless, a genetic dead end that no one could want. But the bond, this impossible, unprecedented bond, chose you. Not some perfect shifter with an impressive bloodline. Not someone who fits easily into pack hierarchy. You. The storyteller who survived being cast out. The woman who ran back into fire for the things that mattered. The one who sees the world in words and makes meaning out of chaos. River. Let me finish. He stepped closer. Jameson will offer you protection. Cade will offer you passion. But I'm offering you something different. Recognition. I see who you are. All of it. The broken parts and the beautiful parts, and I'm telling you that you're not a mistake. You're not worthless. You're exactly who you're meant to be. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. You don't know that. I do. His hands cupped my face, thumbs brushing away tears. Because I'm broken too. I've spent my entire life being the brother who couldn't match Jameson's strength or Cade's ferocity, the one who fought with words instead of claws. And I've wondered every single day if that made me less, if that made me weak. You're not weak, I whispered. Neither are you. He leaned his forehead against mine. So maybe fate didn't make a mistake. Maybe it gave us exactly what we needed. Someone who understands what it's like to survive by being smart instead of strong. Someone who knows that seeing isn't the same as controlling, and being known isn't the same as being owned. The bond flared between us, hot and insistent. I could feel his heartbeat, fast and hard. Could smell his scent, dark forests and winter nights, and something uniquely him. This feels real, I breathed. When you're this close, it feels absolutely real. It is real. His voice was rough. The question is whether it's real with just me, or if what you're feeling is the bond reaching for all three of us through the one who's closest right now. I pulled back slightly, looking up at him. Is that what you think? That I'm just confused? I think, River said carefully, that you've been starving for connection for so long that anyone offering it would feel like salvation. I think you need time to separate genuine attraction from desperate need, and I think I'm terrified that when you do, you'll realize I'm not actually what you want. The vulnerability in his admission cracked something open in my chest. I'm terrified too, I admitted. Of all of this. Of you seeing so much of me. Of the bond being real. Of it being fake. Of choosing wrong. Of choosing it all. Then don't choose yet, River said. Just be. Here. Now. With me. So I did. We sat on that ancient boulder, and River told me stories about his childhood, about growing up in the shadow of two more powerful brothers, about learning to find strength in observation rather than domination. And I told him things I'd never told anyone about the night my father threw me out, about the years of survival sex work I'd done before I'd found legitimate employment, about the shame that lived in my bones like poison. And River listened, really listened. Didn't try to fix or minimize or tell me it would all be okay. He just saw me. All of me. And for the first time in my entire life, being seen didn't feel like a weapon. It felt like coming home. Chapter 5. The Wolf Who Protects. We returned to the lodge as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and blood orange. My burns ached from the walk, and I was exhausted in a way that felt clean, like I'd purged something toxic just by being honest. River had his hand on the small of my back, a touch so casual I almost didn't notice it. Almost. But my body noticed. That compass needle inside me was still pointed directly at him, humming with contentment at the proximity. The door opened before we reached it. Jameson stood in the doorway, and the look he gave River was complicated, part frustration, part resignation, part something that looked almost like envy. Dinner's ready, he said. Cade's been cooking for the past 2 hours. Fair warning. He stress cooks. So there's enough food to feed the entire pack. He's nervous, I said, surprising myself. Jameson's dark eyes swung to me. What makes you say that? Because people who are in control don't need to prove themselves through excess. I moved past him into the warmth of the lodge. He's trying to impress me, or convince himself he has something to offer that his brothers don't. Silence followed my observation. Then River laughed, a genuine sound that echoed through the space. She's got your number already, Cade, he called toward the kitchen. Fuck off, came the rough response, but there was no real heat in it. The dining room was somehow both rustic and elegant, long wooden table that could seat 20, but only 4 places set. Candles flickered in the center, and the smell of rosemary and garlic filled the air. Cade emerged from the kitchen, carrying a platter of roasted meat that looked like it belonged in a 5-star restaurant. His gold eyes found mine immediately, assessing, Intense. You're limping, he said flatly. I'm fine. You walked too far. The burns need rest. Not. He set the platter down harder than necessary. River, what the hell were you thinking? I was thinking she needed air and perspective, River said mildly, pulling out a chair for me. And she got both. She got exhausted. Cade moved toward me, and I had to force myself not to step back. He radiated, controlled violence, every movement precise and deadly. Let me see. See what? Your arms. The bandages need changing. I can do it myself. Let me see. Not a request, a command wrapped in concern. I looked at Jameson, who gave a slight nod. He won't hurt you. But he won't rest until he knows you're healing properly. Either. Sighing, I held out my arms. Cade's hands were surprisingly gentle as he unwrapped the bandages, revealing the angry red marks underneath. Second-degree burns, healing but still painful. His jaw tightened as he examined them. These should have been checked hours ago, he muttered. River, don't blame him, I interrupted. I wanted to go. I needed to get out of this place before I lost my mind. Cade's eyes met mine, and up close, I could see the flecks of amber in the gold. Could see the way his pupils dilated slightly when he looked at me. You could have asked me, he said quietly. I would have taken you wherever you wanted to go. Would you have told me the truth about who I am? About what you see when you look at me? Or would you have just tried to protect me from reality? His mouth tightened. Protection isn't a weakness. It is when it becomes a cage. We stared at each other, tension crackling in the air between us. That pull was there again, but different than with River. Where River's presence felt like understanding, Cade's felt like safety, like a fortress built around something precious. Dinner, Jameson said firmly, before it gets cold. Cade, you can play medic after we eat. Cade released my arms but didn't move away. This isn't over. I didn't think it was. The meal was awkward and wonderful in equal measure. Cade had made roasted venison with root vegetables, fresh bread that was still warm, some kind of berry tart for dessert. Everything was perfect, which somehow made it more uncomfortable. Where did you learn to cook? I asked, trying to break the silence. Cade glanced up from his plate. My mother. Before she died, she insisted all her sons learn to be self-sufficient. Said we'd be useless alphas if we couldn't take care of ourselves. She sounds smart. She was. Something softened in his expression. She was human, dormant, like you. My father mated her anyway, even though the pack said it was a waste of his bloodline. They had 30 years together before she got sick. The parallel wasn't lost on me. How did your father handle losing her? He didn't. Jameson's voice was quiet. He survived about 6 months after she died, then walked into the forest one night and never came back. We found his clothes by the river. His wolf had taken over completely, couldn't exist in human form without his mate. Jesus, I whispered. That's what mate bonds do, Cade said, his voice hard. They complete you, and when they're broken, there's nothing left. That's why this situation, this impossible bond with all three of us is so dangerous. If you choose one of us, the other two don't just lose a potential mate, they lose part of their soul. The weight of that settled over the table like a shroud. Maybe I shouldn't choose at all, I said quietly. Maybe the kindest thing is to walk away from all of you. No. All three of them said it simultaneously, with such force that I jumped. Jameson leaned forward. That's not kindness, that's cowardice. And I don't think you're a coward, Cora. You don't know me well enough to make that judgment, don't I? His dark eyes held mine. You ran back into a burning building. You've survived a decade of being outcast without pack or family. You're sitting here at a table with 3 alphas who all want to claim you, and instead of falling apart, you're asking hard questions and refusing to be manipulated. That's not cowardice. That's courage. My throat tightened. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing, River said with a slight smile. After dinner, Cade cornered me in the hallway while Jameson and River were clearing the table. Come with me, he said, not waiting for an answer before heading toward a door I hadn't noticed before. Where are we going? You'll see. The door led down into a basement, but not the creepy dungeon kind. This was finished, warm, lined with training mats and equipment. A private gym, essentially. But Cade led me past all of that to another door in the back. He opened it to reveal a small room that smelled like herbs and antiseptic. Medical supplies lined the shelves, and there was an examination table in the center. "Sit," he ordered, gesturing to the table. "I can change my own bandages." "I know you can. But you won't do it properly. You'll rush through it because you've learned to ignore your own pain, to minimize your own needs, to take up as little space as possible." He pulled out supplies with practiced efficiency. "And I can't stand watching you hurt yourself through neglect." I sat, more because my legs were tired than because he'd told me to. Cade moved between my knees, his presence overwhelming in the small space. "Why do you care so much?" I asked as he carefully cleaned the burns. "Because you're mine. Simple. Absolute. I knew it the second I pulled you from that fire. Your scent, your heartbeat, everything about you screamed mate so loud I almost shifted right there. But you didn't know which one of you. I don't care." His gold eyes flashed up to meet mine. Jameson can pontificate about clarity, and River can psychoanalyze the bond all he wants. I know what I feel. And what I feel is that I would burn down the entire world to keep you safe. "That's not love," I said, echoing what I'd told him earlier. "That's obsession. Maybe." He applied salve to the burns with infinite gentleness. "Or maybe it's what love looks like when you've spent your whole life watching the people you care about die, when you've learned that the only way to protect what matters is to be willing to destroy anything that threatens it." I studied him, really looked at him. Cade was all sharp edges and controlled violence, but underneath that was something raw. Something wounded. "Who did you lose?" I asked quietly, his hand stilled on my arm. "What? Besides your mother and father, who else did you lose that made you like this?" Cade was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, her name was Elise. She wasn't my mate, the bond hadn't manifested yet. But she was Pac, and I cared about her. "We were engaged before," he trailed off. "Before what?" "Before the traffickers took her." His voice went cold, dead. "She was dormant, like you. Rare bloodline, valuable genetics. They took her right out of our territory, and we didn't even know until it was too late. By the time we found her." His jaw clenched. "Let's just say what they did to trigger her shift destroyed everything that made her who she was. She survived 3 days after we brought her back, then took her own life." Horror washed through me. "Cade. So yes," he interrupted, wrapping fresh bandages around my arms with meticulous care. "I'm obsessive. I'm overprotective. I see you dormant, vulnerable, already targeted once, and every instinct I have screams to claim you, mark you, make sure no one can ever touch you, because I can't lose someone else. I can't fail to protect someone who matters again." "I'm not her," I said gently. "I know that." He finished with the bandages, but didn't step back. "But the fear doesn't care about logic. It just screams. And when I'm near you, the only thing that quiets it is touching you. Knowing you're safe. Knowing you're here." I reached up without thinking, cupping his face. He went completely still, like he was afraid any movement would make me pull away. "I'm here," I said softly. "And I'm not going anywhere. Not tonight." Something broke in his expression. He leaned into my touch, and for just a moment, the dangerous alpha was gone. In his place was just a man who'd lost too much and was terrified of losing more. "The bond," he whispered. "Do you feel it? With me?" "Yes," I admitted. "But Cade, I feel it with River too. And I don't know if that means... It means fate is fucking with us." But there was no anger in his voice, just exhaustion. "It means we have 3 months to figure out something that should be simple but isn't. It means I have to share you with my brothers when every instinct I have says you're mine. I'm not a possession." "I know." He pressed his forehead to mine, mirroring what River had done earlier. "But you're not nothing, either. You're not the worthless cast-off your father claimed you were. You're brilliant and brave and so fucking beautiful it hurts to look at you. And whoever gets you at the end of this, whoever you choose, is the luckiest bastard alive." Tears burned behind my eyes again. "Why are you all so good with words?" "Because we've had centuries of practice," he said with a slight smile. And because you deserve pretty words after a lifetime of cruel ones. We stayed like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, the bond humming between us with the same intensity I'd felt with River. And that was the problem, wasn't it? With River, the bond felt like recognition, like coming home. With Cade, it felt like safety, like sanctuary. How was I supposed to choose between those things? How was I supposed to separate genuine connection from desperate need when both felt equally real? Come on, Cade said finally, stepping back. You need sleep. Jameson wants to talk to you tomorrow, and he'll probably keep you up half the night with pack politics and strategic planning if we let him. What's he like? I asked as we headed back upstairs. When it's his turn. Cade's expression was complicated. Jameson is intense in a different way. River gets in your head. I get in your heart. Jameson gets in your soul. He's the alpha for a reason. He sees patterns, understands pack dynamics, thinks 10 moves ahead. If you spend real time with him, he'll show you what it means to be valued beyond just survival. That sounds terrifying. It should be. Cade stopped at the door to my suite. Because if you fall for Jameson, you're not just choosing a mate. You're choosing to be Luna Pack mother, leader, the one everyone looks to. That's power, Cora. Real power. And I think you've been powerless for so long that having it might scare you more than anything. He left me at my door with those words hanging in the air. I went inside, exhausted and overwhelmed, my mind spinning with everything that had happened in just one day. 2 brothers down, each one offering something different, each one making the bond feel absolutely real. And tomorrow, I'd face Jameson the eldest, the alpha, the one who apparently could see into souls. I crawled into the enormous bed, my newly bandaged arms aching, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this lodge were 3 brothers who all believed they were my fated mate, and somewhere inside me was the terrifying truth that I might be falling for all of them. Chapter 6. The Wolf Who Leads. I woke to find Jameson sitting in the chair by my window, silhouetted against the dawn light. Jesus. I jerked upright, heart hammering. How long have you been there? An hour, maybe 2. He didn't apologize for the intrusion, didn't move from his position. You talk in your sleep. Heat flooded my face. What did I say? Nothing coherent. Just sounds. Whimpers, mostly. You were dreaming about the fire. His dark eyes found mine in the dim light. You dream about it every night, don't you? I pulled the blanket tighter around myself, suddenly feeling exposed, despite being fully clothed. Why are you here? Because it's my turn. He stood, moving with that fluid grace that marked all predators. River showed you understanding. Cade showed you protection. Now it's my turn to show you what I can offer. Which is purpose. He moved closer to the bed. Get dressed. Wear something you can move in. We're going for a run. I can't shift. I know. You'll ride with me. 20 minutes later, I was standing in the clearing behind the lodge wearing borrowed athletic clothes, watching Jameson strip out of his shirt with casual efficiency. I said intelligently. He glanced over his shoulder, one eyebrow raised. You've never seen a shifter transform? Not up close. My father always said it was wasted on me, showing me what I could never be. Something dark flickered across Jameson's face. Your father was a fool, and if he weren't already dead, I'd kill him myself for what he did to you. Before I could respond, he shifted. It wasn't like the movies. There was no grotesque breaking of bones or Hollywood special effects. One moment Jameson was standing there, human and powerful. The next, a massive black wolf stood in his place, easily the size of a small horse. His eyes were the same dark brown, intelligent, and assessing. He lowered himself slightly, an obvious invitation. You want me to ride you? My voice came out higher than intended. The wolf Jameson made a sound that was distinctly amused. Right, okay. This is happening. I approached cautiously, and he stayed perfectly still as I climbed onto his back. His fur was coarser than I'd expected, warm and alive with muscle underneath. The moment I was settled, he took off. I'd never experienced anything like it. The world blurred into streaks of green and brown as Jameson ran, faster than should be possible, weaving between trees with impossible precision. I buried my hands in his fur and held on, my heart in my throat, terror and exhilaration mixing until I couldn't tell them apart. We ran until the sun was fully risen, until my arms ached from holding on and my lungs burned from the cold air. Then Jameson slowed, bringing us to a stop at the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley that stretched for miles. He shifted back just as casual and quick as before, and I quickly averted my eyes. "There are clothes in the bag," he said, amused. "I'm not trying to seduce you through nudity." "Could have fooled me," I muttered. But I heard him dressing behind me. "You can look now. You can look now." I turned. He'd pulled on jeans and a thermal shirt, his dark hair loose around his shoulders. The morning light caught on the sharp planes of his face, and I understood why people followed him. Jameson didn't just command authority, he was authority, down to his bones. "Why did you bring me here?" I asked. He gestured to the valley below. "This is Thorn territory, 15,000 acres of land that my family has protected for 300 years. Do you know how many packs have tried to take it? How many wars we've fought to keep it? No. 17. He moved to stand beside me at the cliff's edge. 17 separate wars, hundreds dead, all because this land is valuable, strategic location, abundant prey, natural resources. Every generation of Thorn has bled to keep it safe. That's a lot of death for dirt. It's not about the dirt." His voice was patient, like he was explaining something fundamental. "It's about what the dirt represents. Safety. Home. A place where our people can exist without fear. That's what alphas do, Cora. We don't just protect individuals, we protect the collective. We think in generations, in legacy, in the long game." I studied the valley, trying to see what he saw. "What does this have to do with me?" "Everything." He turned to face me fully. "River showed you that you can be seen. Cage showed you that you can be protected. But I need you to understand something bigger. You can be valued, not just as an individual, but as part of something larger than yourself." "I don't understand." "The bond," Jameson said, "isn't just about personal connection. It's about pack, legacy, the future. Whoever you choose becomes Luna, the heart of this pack, the one who nurtures and guides and makes this place more than just defended territory. It becomes home." "I can't be Luna," I said immediately. "I'm not a shifter. I have no status. No, you have exactly what's needed." He stepped closer, and I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "Do you know what makes a good Luna? It's not shifting ability or bloodline status. It's the capacity to see people really see them and understand what they need. It's the strength to make hard decisions for the greater good. It's the courage to stand beside an alpha and tell him when he's wrong." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." A slight smile. "But it's also powerful. Real power, Cora. Not the kind that comes from dominance or violence. The kind that comes from influence. From being the person everyone trusts when things fall apart." I looked away from his intense gaze, uncomfortable with the weight of what he was offering. "Why me? If this role is so important, why would you tie it to someone like me? Someone broken and dormant and completely unprepared?" "Because," Jameson said quietly, "broken people understand pain, and a Luna who understands pain can lead with compassion instead of judgment. You've survived things that would have destroyed most people. You've learned to find strength in unexpected places. That's exactly what this pack needs. You don't even know if I'm really your mate." "I know." Absolute certainty in his voice. "The bond is there, Cora. I've felt it since the moment we pulled you from that fire. And whether it's just me or all three of us, whether fate is playing games or revealing something unprecedented, none of that changes the fundamental truth. You belong here, with us, in this pack." Tears stung my eyes. "You're offering me everything I've ever wanted. Purpose, belonging, a place to matter. How is that fair?" "What's not fair about it?" "Because I don't know if what I'm feeling is real or just desperation. 10 years of being alone, and suddenly 3 men are offering me everything I've been starving for. How do I separate genuine feeling from just wanting to finally belong somewhere?" Jameson's expression softened. "You don't," Not yet. That's why we have 3 months. That's why you're spending time with each of us separately to see if the bond is real or if it's just your heart trying to grab onto the first safe thing it's found. And if it's not real? If I'm just projecting? Then you walk away and we help you build a life somewhere else. But Cora, he reached out, cupping my face the way River and Cade had both done. I don't think that's what's happening. I think fate brought you to us for a reason, and I think that reason is bigger than any of us understand yet. The bond flared again, hot and insistent. With Jameson, it felt different than with his brothers. Where River was understanding and Cade was safety, Jameson was certainty. Like an anchor in a storm, like solid ground after years of drowning. I'm scared, I whispered. Good. That means you're taking this seriously. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. Now let me show you what you'd be leading. Subscribe if you believe purpose can heal what pain has broken. Because Cora's about to discover that belonging isn't just about being accepted, it's about being necessary. We spent the rest of the morning touring the territory. Not running this time, walking, with Jameson pointing out landmarks and explaining pack dynamics with the patience of a born teacher. We have 347 wolves in Thorn Pack, he said as we walked through what looked like a small village hidden in the forest. Cabins dotted the landscape, smoke rising from chimneys, the sound of children playing in the distance. Most live here in the main settlement. Others prefer the outlying cabins, like the lodge where you're staying. This is incredible, I breathed, watching a group of teenagers practice sparring in an open area. I had no idea packs could be this organized. Most aren't. Most are collections of families barely held together by hierarchy and fear. Jameson waved to an older woman who was hanging laundry. My grandfather changed that. He believed packs should function like communities, everyone contributing, everyone valued according to their skills rather than just their dominance. That's revolutionary. That's survival. He guided me toward a large building that looked like a community center. After the wars nearly destroyed us, he realized that packs built on pure dominance eventually eat themselves alive. So he created systems, councils, skill-based roles, opportunities for wolves to contribute beyond just fighting. It's not perfect, but it works. Inside the building, we found a meeting in progress. Wolves of various ages sat around a large table, discussing what sounded like resource allocation. They all looked up when Jameson entered, respect immediate and obvious. Alpha, one of them said, standing. We didn't expect you today, just showing our guest around. Jameson's hand found the small of my back, a touch that was both casual and possessive. This is Cora. She's under pack protection. I expect everyone to treat her accordingly. The announcement rippled through the room. Eyes assessed me, some curious, some skeptical, some knowing in a way that made my skin prickle. Is she? Someone started. Under pack protection, Jameson repeated, his voice taking on that alpha command that made everyone go still. That's all anyone needs to know right now. We left before anyone could ask more questions, but I could feel their gazes following us. They know, I said once we were outside. About the bond. They suspect. Rumors travel fast in pack. Jameson led me down a path toward what looked like a greenhouse. But suspicion isn't confirmation. And until we understand what's happening, until you make your choice, we're keeping the details private. What happens if I choose one of you? What happens to the pack structure? You said all 3 of you are alphas. Then the pack adjusts. He opened the greenhouse door, revealing a space filled with herbs and vegetables that shouldn't have been growing this late in the year. If you choose River, he and I would share leadership. He'd handle diplomacy and pack psychology while I handle security and territory. If you choose Cade, he'd step up from enforcer to co-alpha, and we'd divide responsibilities accordingly. And if I choose you? Jameson was quiet for a moment, running his fingers over mint leaves that filled the air with their scent. Then you become Luna of the most powerful pack in the Northern Territories. You help me lead 347 wolves into the future. You stand beside me through war and peace, through easy decisions and impossible ones. You become my partner in every sense of the word. That's a lot of pressure. It is. He turned to face me, and in the soft green light of the greenhouse, he looked almost vulnerable. But Cora, I've been leading alone for 15 years, since my father died, and I took the alpha position. And I'm good at it. I won't pretend otherwise. But I'm tired. Tired of making every decision alone. Tired of being the one everyone looks to without anyone looking at me. Tired of strength without softness, strategy without soul. He moved closer, and I found myself backing up against the greenhouse workbench. You asked what I'm offering, he continued, voice dropping low. I'm offering you power. Yes. Purpose, and belonging, and a place where you matter. But I'm also offering you partnership. Real partnership. The kind where your voice matters as much as mine. Where your insights shape packed decisions. Where you're not just my mate, you're my equal. I'm not your equal, I protested. You're an alpha. You're powerful. You're incomplete without you. His hands braced on either side of me, caging me in without touching. That's what mate bonds do. They don't complete us like missing puzzle pieces, they complement us. Balance us. And Cora, I need balance. I need someone who understands loss and survival, someone who won't be impressed by power or intimidated by responsibility. Someone who'll tell me the truth even when it's hard. Why do you think I can do that? Because you already are. His dark eyes searched mine. You're not afraid of me. Not really. You're afraid of the bond, afraid of choosing wrong, afraid of failing. But me? You look at me and see just a man. Not an alpha, not a leader, just Jameson. And I haven't been just Jameson to anyone in a very long time. The bond was singing between us now, that pull so strong it was almost painful. I wanted to lean into him, to close the distance, to see if his lips tasted like certainty the way his presence felt. This is unfair, I breathed. How so? Because all three of you are offering me exactly what I need. River offers understanding, Cade offers safety, and you're offering me significance. How am I supposed to choose between those things? How do I pick which one I can live without? Jameson leaned in until his forehead touched mine. Maybe you're not supposed to choose. Maybe fate is trying to tell us something we're too bound by tradition to hear. River said that too. But you said mate bonds don't work that way. I said that's what we've always believed. But what if we've been wrong? His breath ghosted across my lips. What if the bond chose all three of us because you need all three of us? Understanding and safety and purpose. What if trying to separate them is what's causing the confusion? That's impossible. So is a dormant shifter surviving a 3-story fall with minimal injuries. So is 3 alphas all feeling an absolute mate bond with the same woman. We're already in impossible territory, Cora. Maybe it's time we stopped trying to force it into a box it doesn't fit. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed. I don't know how to do this. Then let me help you figure it out. His lips brushed my forehead, gentle as a promise. 2 more months. Spend time with all of us. Stop trying to separate the bond into pieces and just feel. See what emerges naturally. And if what emerges naturally is that I want all of you, then we find a way to make it work. Simple, certain, alpha command wrapped in devotion. We stayed like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, the greenhouse warm and alive around us. And I realized something terrifying. I was falling for all of them. Not separately, not in pieces, but as a whole. River's understanding, Cade's protection, Jameson's purpose, they weren't competing for me. They were completing something I didn't even know was broken. And that was the most dangerous realization of all. Because if I was right, if the bond really did tie me to all 3 of them, we were heading into completely uncharted territory. And if I was wrong, choosing one would destroy the others. Either way, someone was going to get hurt. The only question was whether it would be them or me. Chapter 7. The Breaking. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of intensity and confusion. Days blended together, mornings with River walking through the forest while he taught me to see the way wolves did, to read tracks and understand territorial markers. Afternoons with Cade learning self-defense because, as he put it, understanding your body's capabilities is the first step to believing you're worth protecting. Evenings, with Jameson discussing pack politics and strategy, his hand always finding mine under the table during council meetings, like he needed the contact to stay grounded. And nights alone in my suite, the bond humming with equal intensity toward all 3 of them, that compass needle spinning uselessly because it couldn't find magnetic north when there were 3 sources of pull. I was falling in love with them. All of them. And I had no idea what to do about it. "You're distracted," River said one morning as we sat by the stream that ran through the territory. He'd brought tea in a thermos, and we were watching the water move over rocks, the sound soothing in its constancy. "I'm thinking about how this is supposed to end." I pulled my knees up to my chest. 2 months left, and I'm no closer to understanding which of you the bond is meant for than I was at the beginning. River was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What if you are closer? What if you've already figured it out and you're just afraid to admit the answer?" My heart kicked against my ribs. "What do you mean?" "I mean you're intelligent, Cora. Observant. You've spent 6 weeks experiencing the bond with all 3 of us, and you've felt how it responds differently to each of us. So either you genuinely can't tell the difference, or I don't want to," I finished quietly. "Or you don't want to." He turned to face me, gray eyes knowing. "Because admitting the truth means hurting people you've come to care about, and you've had enough pain in your life. You don't want to be the cause of anyone else's." Tears burned behind my eyes. "I don't know how to choose between you. I don't know how to pick one and walk away from the others when all 3 of you feel necessary." "Necessary," River repeated softly. "Interesting word choice. What would you call it?" Love. Simple. Direct. You're in love with all of us, Cora. And you don't know how to reconcile that with the fact that mate bonds are supposed to be singular." The word hung between us like a confession. "I can't love all 3 of you," I whispered. "That's not how it works." "Says who?" River shifted closer. "Says tradition? Says rules written by wolves who never experienced what we're experiencing? Cora, we're already breaking every rule about how bonds work. Why is this the line we can't cross?" "Because..." I stopped, frustrated. "Because if I'm wrong, if the bond really is meant for just one of you, and I'm just confused or desperate or..." "Do you feel desperate when you're with me?" "No." "Do you feel confused when Cade holds you during training? When Jameson discusses pack strategy with you like you're already Luna?" "No," I admitted. "I feel... right. Like all the broken pieces are finally fitting together." River smiled, sad and knowing. "Then maybe that's your answer." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. I'd gotten it 2 weeks ago. Jameson insisted I needed a way to contact them if anything happened. I pulled it out, frowning at the unknown number. "You need to see this." "A friend." A link followed. My hands shook as I clicked it. The web page loaded slowly, revealing a news article from a gossip site that covered pack politics and shifter society. Thorn Alpha announces engagement. Ancient bloodline to unite. The photo showed Jameson at some formal event, standing next to a woman who was everything I wasn't. Tall, elegant, clearly shifter-born, with that predatory grace that marked powerful bloodlines. She was beautiful in a way that made my chest hurt. Alpha Jameson Thorn of the Northern Territories has announced his engagement to Vivienne Ashford, daughter of the Ashford Pack's former Alpha. Sources say the union will strengthen political alliances and secure the Thorn Pack's position in ongoing territorial negotiations. The ceremony is scheduled for 3 weeks from now at the Thorn estate. The world tilted sideways. "Cora?" River's voice seemed to come from very far away. "What is it?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, just handed him the phone with numb fingers. He read it, and his expression went absolutely cold. "Fuck. He's getting married." My voice sounded hollow, dead. "In 3 weeks. To someone who actually belongs in his world." "Cora, this isn't..." "Isn't what? Real?" He announced it. "There's a photo, a date." I stood on shaky legs. Was this whole thing just what? Entertainment? String along the broken dormant girl while he makes arrangements with someone appropriate? No. River stood too, reaching for me. But I stepped back. This has to be a mistake. Or political maneuvering. Jameson wouldn't what? Make strategic decisions for his pack? Isn't that what alphas do? Bitterness flooded my voice. You said it yourself. Alphas think in terms of legacy and the greater good. Maybe the greater good is marrying someone who can actually give him shifter heirs and political alliances instead of a dormant nobody with broken genetics. Stop. River's voice went hard. You're panicking, making assumptions without facts. Let me talk to him. I don't want to talk to him. I was already backing toward the lodge. I want to leave, right now. You all promised that if I wanted to leave, you'd let me go. Cora, please. But I was running, back through the forest, toward the lodge, my mind screaming with betrayal and self-recrimination. Of course, this was too good to be true. Of course, the mate bond was a lie. I was dormant, broken, worthless, just like my father always said. How could I have been stupid enough to believe otherwise? I burst into the lodge to find Cade in the living room, and the moment he saw my face, he was on his feet. What happened? I'm leaving. Get me whatever documents I need for a new identity. Wire the money you promised, and let me go. Like hell. You promised. I was shaking now, fury and pain mixing until I couldn't separate them. You said if I wanted to leave, you'd let me. So let me leave. Not until you tell me what happened. He caught my arms, gentle despite his obvious agitation. Cora, talk to me. I shoved my phone at him. Watched his expression go from confusion to fury as he read. This is bullshit, he snarled. Jameson would never what? Make a smart political decision? Never choose the pack over personal feelings? That's literally his job. Where is he? Cade's voice had gone deadly quiet, the tone that meant violence was coming. Council meeting in the settlement, River said from the doorway. He looked devastated. He's been there all morning. But Cade, we need to think about this. Think about what? Cade was already moving toward the door. Our brother is apparently engaged to someone else while actively courting a mate bond. That's not strategy. That's betrayal. Or it's political pressure we don't understand. I don't care. The windows rattled with the force of Cade's shout. She's ours. He knows that. And if he's chosen pack politics over, then he's chosen. My voice came out flat, dead. And I'm done being the consolation prize. I went to my suite and started packing. Not that I had much, just the clothes they'd bought me, the few personal items I'd accumulated. Everything fit in one bag, which felt appropriate. Proof that even here, even with them, I'd never really belonged. There was a soft knock on the door. Go away. The door opened anyway. Jameson stood in the doorway, still in the formal clothes he wore to council meetings. His expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his jaw. You saw the article, he said. Get out. Cora, let me explain. Explain what? I whirled on him. How you've been playing house with me while arranging a marriage to someone else. How the mate bond was just a fun side project while you secured your political future. Or maybe you want to explain how you made me believe I could actually matter to someone when all I've ever been is disposable. Pain flashed across his face. You're not disposable. Then why is there an engagement announcement with your name on it? Because the council forced my hand. He stepped into the room, and I retreated. 3 weeks ago, the Ashford pack threatened to withdraw from our alliance unless I agreed to mate one of their daughters. It would have left us vulnerable, exposed on our eastern border. I had no choice. There's always a choice. Not for alphas. His control cracked slightly. Not when 347 lives depend on your decisions. Not when refusing could trigger a war that would kill people I'm supposed to protect. You of all people should understand this. You spent 6 weeks learning what it means to lead, to sacrifice personal wants for collective needs. So I was the sacrifice. My voice broke. The thing you wanted but couldn't keep because duty called. No. He moved closer, and I could see the desperation in his dark eyes. You're not the sacrifice. The engagement is political theater, a promise to unite bloodlines and secure alliances. But it's not a mate bond. Vivienne understands that. She's been promised power and status, not love. And what was I promised? Everything. The word came out raw. I promised you partnership. Purpose. A place where you mattered. And I meant it, Cora. Every word. The engagement doesn't change the bond. Yes, it does. I was shouting now, weeks of confusion and longing and fear finally exploding. Because even if the bond is real, Even if you feel it just as strongly as your brothers, you've made it clear where your priorities lie. Pack first, politics first. Everything else, including me, comes second. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and it came out bitter. Nothing about this is fair. You showed me what I could be, Luna. Partner, someone who matters, and now you're taking it away because some other woman's bloodline is more politically valuable than mine. You're just like my father. Just like everyone who's ever looked at me and seen broken instead of worthy. I see you. Jameson's voice went quiet, intense. I see exactly who you are. And you're not broken, Cora. You're not worthless. You're not enough. I cut him off. Not enough to choose over pack politics. Not enough to fight for. Not enough to keep. Silence fell between us, heavy with everything unsaid. Then Jameson said quietly, "If I could choose differently, I would. If there was any other way. But there isn't." I forced myself to look at him. "So do what you do best, Alpha. Make the hard choice. Sacrifice the one thing for the many. And let me go. I can't." His voice cracked. The bond was a mistake. The words tasted like poison, or a test, or maybe just the universe's way of showing me exactly how far I've come from where I started, and how I still end up in the same place, alone. Drop a comment if you've ever felt like finally being chosen, only to discover you were never really the first choice, because what happens next will either break Cora completely, or forge her into something unbreakable. "You're not alone," Jameson said desperately. "River and Cade, the bond with them is real too. You still have, what? 2/3 of something that should have been whole? A consolation prize because the one who was supposed to lead chose duty instead?" I shook my head. "I won't do that to them. I won't be the mate who's settling because her first choice wasn't available. That's not what this is. Isn't it?" I met his eyes. "Be honest. If you could have both me and the Alliance, you'd choose both. But you can't. So you're choosing the Alliance and hoping River or Cade can complete the bond in your place. That's not love, Jameson. That's delegation." He flinched like I'd struck him. "You're right," he said finally. "About all of it. I'm choosing the pack. I'm sacrificing what I want for what's needed. And I'm hoping desperately, selfishly hoping that the bond will clarify toward one of my brothers, because then at least you'll be protected and loved even if it's not by me. And if it doesn't clarify, if the bond really does need all three of you and you're about to be permanently tied to someone else, then I live with it." His voice was hollow. "I live with knowing I had something precious and I let it go. I live with the mate bond pulling towards someone I can't have. I live with being alpha and alone, just like I have been for 15 years. That's not my problem. I know." He started toward the door, then stopped. "For what it's worth, and I know it's worth nothing right now, you would have been an incredible Luna. The pack would have loved you, and I." He stopped, jaw working. "I hope River or Cade gives you everything I couldn't." Then he was gone, leaving me standing in a room full of borrowed things that had never really been mine. I finished packing with numb hands, my mind spiraling. The bond was still there. I could feel it, pulling toward all three of them with that same impossible intensity. But Jameson was right about one thing. I couldn't stay. Couldn't watch him marry someone else while pretending the bond didn't exist. Couldn't choose between River and Cade, when both of them deserved someone whole, not someone grieving a bond that never fully formed. There was a commotion downstairs, raised voices, something breaking. I grabbed my bag and headed down to find Cade and River in what looked like the aftermath of a hurricane. Furniture was overturned, and Cade had blood on his knuckles. "He's not wrong," River was saying, his voice strained. "The council has him backed into a corner. If he refuses the engagement, the Ashford pack withdraws support." "I don't care," Cade snarled. "She's our mate. That trumps politics. That trumps everything. Not for alphas." River's gray eyes found mine where I stood on the stairs. "Not when hundreds of lives hang in the balance. So what, we just let him marry someone else? Let the bond tear him apart slowly? Let Cora walk away thinking she's not worth fighting for?" "I don't know," River admitted. "I don't know what the right answer is. But I know forcing Jameson to choose between Cora and his pack will destroy him, and destroying him won't help anyone. I walked down the stairs, and both of them went quiet. I'm leaving, I said, not to punish anyone, not to make a point, but because staying here while Jameson prepares to marry someone else is something I can't survive. I need distance. Time to figure out what the bond really means when it's broken before it's complete. You're not broken, Cade started. The bond is. I cut him off gently. Maybe it was always meant to clarify toward one of you and Jameson was just interference. Or maybe it needed all three, and we've just discovered that's impossible. Either way, I need to be somewhere else while we figure it out. Where will you go? River asked quietly. I don't know yet. Somewhere far from pack politics and impossible choices. Somewhere I can think. We'll set everything up, River said. New identity, secure location, money. Give us 48 hours. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Cade moved toward me, and the devastation in his gold eyes made my chest ache. This isn't over. Whatever Jameson chose, whatever the bond is doing, this isn't over, Cora. We'll find a way. Maybe, I said softly. Or maybe this is just fate teaching me the same lesson I've been learning my whole life. I don't get to keep the things I love. I went back to my suite and locked the door, and for the first time since the fire, I let myself completely break, because I'd been right. I'd opened myself up, let myself be seen and known and valued. And it still wasn't enough. I was still the girl no one kept. Chapter 8. The wedding. 2 months passed in a blur of monotony. River had set me up in a small coastal town 300 miles from Thorn territory. Far enough that I couldn't feel the bond's constant pull, close enough that they could reach me if the traffickers resurfaced. The apartment was nice. Too nice. Everything they'd given me was too nice, which only made the hollow ache in my chest worse. I wrote. That's all I did, really. Wrote stories about people who found their happy endings, about bonds that didn't break, about fate being kind instead of cruel. The words came easier now, like grief had unlocked something that survival had kept locked away, but I didn't heal. The bond was still there, muted by distance, but present, like a song playing in another room. I could feel them sometimes, especially at night. River's steady presence, Cade's protective fury, and Jameson's felt like absence, like a piece of myself had been carved out, and I was learning to function around the whole. I told myself I was fine. Told myself this was better, clean break, fresh start. All the things people said when they were trying to convince themselves loss was actually freedom. I told myself I wouldn't go to the wedding. And then, 3 days before the ceremony, River called. Don't hang up, he said immediately. Just listen. I should have hung up. Should have protected myself from whatever he was about to say. Instead, I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, desperate for the sound of his voice. I'm listening. Jameson's going through with it. The wedding is in 3 days at the Thorn estate. Formal pack ceremony. Political spectacle. All of it. My heart cracked a little more. Why are you telling me this? Because Cade and I are going to stop it. I sat up straighter. What? We've been investigating the Ashford pack's leverage, why they suddenly needed this alliance so desperately. And Cora? We found something. Evidence that they're connected to the trafficking ring that targeted you. The whole engagement is a setup, a way to get access to Thorn territory and resources under the guise of political alliance. My blood went cold. Does Jameson know? We've tried to tell him, but he's... River's voice was strained. He's not himself. It's like he's going through the motions, locked into alpha mode, refusing to consider that this might be a trap. He says even if the Ashfords are connected, the alliance is still necessary to prevent war. So what are you going to do? Expose them, at the wedding, in front of all the witnesses and pack leaders who'll be attending. Force the truth into the open where Jameson can't ignore it. He paused. But Cora, we need you there. No. The word came out immediate, panicked. I can't. The bond is the key to everything. If Jameson completes a political mating while the true mate bond is unresolved, it could kill him. The wolf won't accept a false mate, not when the real one exists. We need you there to prove the bond is real. To show the pack that this wedding is a mistake before it's too late. River, I can't watch him marry someone else. You won't have to. His voice went fierce. Because we're going to stop it, but I need to know you'll be there. That you haven't given up on this, on us. I closed my eyes, fighting tears. What if you're wrong? What if exposing the Ashfords doesn't change anything? What if Jameson still chooses duty over the bond? Then at least we'll know we tried. River's voice softened. Please, Cora. I know we don't deserve it. I know we've already hurt you more than anyone should have to bear. But please, give us one more chance to fix this. I should have said no. Should have protected myself from more pain. Instead, I heard myself whisper, "Send me the details." The Thorne estate was massive, a sprawling compound that mixed modern luxury with old-world pack tradition. Cars lined the drive, expensive and gleaming. Guests in formal wear moved through the grounds, shifter aristocracy from across the territories gathering to witness the union. I felt completely out of place in the simple black dress. River had sent elegant but understated, designed to let me blend into the crowd. My hair was pulled back, minimal makeup. I looked like exactly what I was, someone who didn't belong here. You came. Cade materialized beside me, appearing from the shadows with that predator's grace. He looked devastating in a dark suit, his gold eyes scanning the crowd with barely contained violence. Thank fuck. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either. I studied him. You look like you're about to murder someone. I'm considering it. His jaw was tight. Jameson's inside, going through with it like a fucking martyr. And Vivienne. He stopped, something dangerous flashing in his eyes. There's something wrong with her. The way she moves, the way she smells. Off how? Like she's drugged, or controlled. I can't put my finger on it, but my instincts are screaming. He glanced at me. Rivers gathering the evidence. We have one of the trafficking operatives willing to testify he confirmed the Ashford connection in exchange for protection. But we need to time this perfectly. If we reveal too early, they'll deny and deflect. Too late, and the binding will be complete. When? During the vows, right before he accepts the mate bond. Cade's expression was grim. It's going to be public, brutal, and there's a good chance it turns violent. Are you sure you want to be here for this? Before I could answer, River appeared on my other side. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his gray eyes, but his expression sharpened with relief when he saw me. You're here, he breathed. Where else would I be? I tried to smile. Failed. How is he? Empty. River's voice was quiet, like he's already grieved and accepted what he's about to do. It's... He stopped, jaw working. I've never seen him like this. It's like watching him die slowly. Guilt crashed through me. Maybe I should have stayed. Maybe if I'd been here. If I'd fought harder. No. River cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. You did exactly what you needed to do. You set boundaries. You demanded to be chosen, not settled for. That's not weakness, Cora. That's strength. Doesn't feel like strength. It never does. He leaned his forehead against mine, and I felt that bond flare back to life, 2 months of distance evaporating in an instant. God, I've missed you. The lodge is wrong without you. Everything's wrong without you. River, after this is over, he interrupted. After we stop this disaster of a wedding and prove the Ashford connection, we need to talk. Really talk. About the bond. About what it means that it pulls toward all three of us. About whether there's a way to make this work that doesn't destroy everyone involved. I don't know if there is, I whispered. Then we figure it out together. He pulled back slightly. But first, we save my idiot brother from himself. The ceremony was being held in a massive garden behind the estate. Chairs were set up in neat rows, an arch of flowers at the front. Traditional pack ceremony, witnessed by hundreds. The binding would be public, irrevocable, and according to pack law, supersede any previous mate bond claims. We took seats in the back, close to the exit. Cade's leg bounced with barely restrained energy. River's hand found mine, squeezing tight. Music started. The crowd stood. Jameson entered first, walking down the aisle with that alpha confidence that made people instinctively move aside. But River was right, something was wrong. His expression was blank, controlled, none of the warmth I'd seen during our time together. He looked like what he was, a leader performing a necessary duty. Then Vivienne appeared. She was beautiful, there was no denying that. Tall, elegant, moving with shifter grace. Her dress was traditional white, her dark hair elaborately styled. But as she got closer, I saw what Cade had noticed. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. Her smile was fixed, artificial. She looked drugged. "Something's really wrong," I whispered. "I know," Cade growled. "But we have to wait. If we move too early," the ceremony began. Traditional pack vows, spoken in the old language. Jameson's voice was steady, showing none of the turmoil I knew he must be feeling. Vivienne's responses were oddly flat, like she was reading from a script. The officiant, an elder from neutral territory, raised his hands. "We come now to the binding, the acceptance of mate bond and pack alliance. Alpha Jameson, do you accept this woman as your mate, to lead beside you, to bear your children, to share your soul until death parts you?" This was it. The moment of no return. Jameson opened his mouth to respond, and that's when everything exploded into chaos. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Masked figures emerged from the crowd, weapons drawn. Someone screamed. Shifters began transforming, the air filling with the sound of ripping clothes and snarling wolves. "It's a setup," River shouted, already moving. The wedding was the target all along. A gunshot cracked through the air. I watched in horror as Jameson staggered, red blooming across his white shirt. He'd thrown himself in front of Vivienne, taking a bullet meant for her, or maybe meant for him. It was impossible to tell in the chaos. Cade was already in motion, shifting mid-stride into a massive gray wolf, tearing into the attackers with savage efficiency. River grabbed my arm, trying to pull me toward safety, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Jameson was on his knees, one hand pressed to his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. Vivienne stood frozen, that drugged expression finally cracking into something like terror. And the attackers were closing in. I didn't think, didn't plan, just ran. I threw myself between Jameson and the advancing attackers, arms spread wide like my body could somehow shield an alpha wolf from bullets. "Cora!" "No." Jameson's voice was rough with pain and panic. "Get back!" I screamed at the attackers. "Whatever you want, whatever this is about, it goes through me first." One of them laughed, cold, cruel. "Perfect. The dormant bitch, exactly what we came for." That's when I understood. The wedding wasn't the target. I was. The traffickers had used the ceremony as cover, knowing I'd be here, knowing the brothers would be distracted. This was never about politics or alliances. It was always about me. "Run," Jameson growled behind me. "Cora, please. Run." But I wouldn't, because something was happening inside me. Something that felt like waking up after years of sleep. The bond wasn't just humming anymore, it was screaming, pulling toward all 3 brothers with impossible intensity. And underneath that, something else. Something primal and powerful and absolutely terrifying. My wolf. After 26 years of dormancy, she was awake. "You want me?" I heard myself say, and my voice didn't sound like my own. "Come and get me." The shift hit like lightning. Pain exploded through every nerve, bones reforming, muscles restructuring. I heard myself scream, but it came out as a howl, primal and furious and alive. When the pain cleared, I was standing on 4 legs instead of 2. I was wolf, not dormant, not broken. Wolf, and I was pissed. The attackers froze, clearly not expecting this. Whatever drugs or magic they'd used to track dormant shifters, it hadn't accounted for activation, for the fact that trauma and mate bonds and sheer desperate need could wake what had been sleeping. I launched myself at the nearest attacker, and my wolf knew exactly what to do. Teeth found throat, claws found flesh. I fought with the fury of someone who'd spent a lifetime being told they were worthless, and I made every second count. Behind me, I heard Jameson shift. Felt rather than saw Cade and River converge, the three of them forming a protective triangle around where I fought. The bond between us blazed like fire, and I finally understood what it meant. Not one mate, not two, all three. The bond had always been meant for all of us. One heart, three souls, unified by something too powerful for tradition to contain. The fight was brutal and short. Between my newly awakened wolf, three alpha brothers, and Cade's pack security converging, the traffickers didn't stand a chance. Within minutes, they were subdued, bound, the threat neutralized. I shifted back easier this time, like my body was remembering how, and immediately collapsed. Strong arms caught me. Jameson, still bleeding from his shoulder, pulled me against his chest like he'd never let go. "You shifted," he whispered, voice breaking. "You actually shifted." "Surprise," I managed weakly. Cade and River were there instantly, all three of them surrounding me, hands touching, checking for injuries. The bond singing between us so strongly I could barely breathe. "The bond," River said, voice filled with wonder. "It's complete. All three of us. She's ours," Cade finished. "All of ours." Jameson pulled back enough to look at me, and his dark eyes were swimming with tears. "I'm so sorry. For everything. For choosing wrong. For thinking duty mattered more than this. For please." I kissed him. Cut off his apology with my mouth on his, pouring 2 months of grief and longing and desperate love into it. When we broke apart, he was staring at me like I'd hung the moon. "The wedding," he started, "is cancelled," River said firmly. He was holding something, documents, evidence. "Because Vivian Ashford is actually Vivian Carver, daughter of the trafficking ring's leader. The whole engagement was a setup to get access to pack territory, and to you specifically. She's been drugged into compliance, probably didn't even know what she was agreeing to." "The Ashford pack?" Jameson asked, still holding me. "Had no idea their daughter had been replaced. The real Vivienne died 6 months ago. This was a ringer, designed to get close to you and destabilize Thornpack from within." Cade's voice was grim. "We have testimony, evidence, everything we need to prove it." Jameson looked at Vivienne, or whoever she really was, where she was being held by pack security. The drugs were wearing off, and she looked terrified. Young, trapped. "Get her medical attention," he ordered, "and someone contact the Ashford pack. They need to know their daughter is dead and their alliance was based on a lie." Then he turned back to me, and his expression was raw with emotion. "I almost lost you. I chose wrong, thought I could sacrifice the bond for the pack, and I almost, but you didn't." I cupped his face, feeling the mate bond settle into place like puzzle pieces finally clicking together. "We figured it out, all of us, together. The bond," River said quietly. "It really is all three of us, isn't it?" I looked between them. River with his gray eyes full of understanding, Cade with his gold eyes blazing with protective fury, Jameson with his dark eyes finally showing hope instead of resignation. "Yes," I said simply. "I love all three of you, separately and together. And I think that's what the bond was trying to tell us all along, that sometimes fate doesn't fit into neat boxes. Sometimes it requires us to break the rules and trust that love is bigger than tradition." "The pack," Jameson started. "Will adjust," Cade interrupted firmly. "We'll figure out how to make it work. 3 alphas, 1 Luna, 1 pack. It's unprecedented, but so is everything about this bond. People will talk," River added. "They'll question, judge, call it unnatural. Let them," I said. "I've spent my entire life being told I was broken and unnatural. And look what happened when I finally embraced it. I shifted. I completed a bond that shouldn't exist. I became exactly what fate intended, even if it doesn't look like what anyone expected." Jameson laughed, then genuine, relieved, full of joy. "You're going to be a terrifying Luna." "Good." I pulled all three of them closer, feeling the bond settle into perfect harmony. This pack needs terrifying. They need someone who'll break every rule that needs breaking, and make new ones that actually work. The celebration that followed was part wedding, part victory, part revelation. The pack leaders who'd come to witness a political alliance instead witnessed something unprecedented. 3 alphas, claiming 1 mate, One Luna accepting all three, and a bond that rewrote the rules. Some were scandalized, some were intrigued, most were simply shocked. But as Jameson stood with me in the center of the garden, River and Cade flanking us, and made the formal announcement, "This is Cora Thorn, Luna of our pack, and mate to all three Thorn Alphas," I saw, understanding dawn on many faces. Because power doesn't always look like what tradition says it should. Sometimes it looks like a formerly dormant wolf standing between three alphas and declaring that love is bigger than law. Sometimes it looks like choosing all three when you're supposed to choose one. Sometimes it looks like burning down the old rules and building something better from the ashes. And as the pack howled, their acceptance 347 voices raised in unison, I finally understood what my mother had tried to teach me all those years ago. Stories don't just help us survive. They help us imagine what's possible. They show us that the rules we think are unbreakable are just words on a page, and words can always be rewritten. I'd spent my whole life believing I was broken. Turns out, I was just waiting to be made whole. And whole, I discovered, required 3 hearts instead of 1. Epilogue, 3 months later. The library Jameson built for me was even more beautiful than the one I'd dreamed about in my notebooks. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Thorn territory, comfortable chairs positioned for maximum reading light, shelves that stretched toward vaulted ceilings, already filling with books both old and new, and in the center, a massive desk where I worked on the stories that were no longer just escape but legacy. I was documenting everything. The fire, the rescue, the impossible bond. Not for publication, this was pack history, meant to be passed down through generations, proof that mate bonds could evolve, that tradition wasn't infallible, that love could be bigger than anyone expected. "You're frowning." River appeared with tea, setting it down on my desk before reading over my shoulder. "What's wrong with this section? I can't figure out how to explain the moment I shifted. The words feel inadequate, maybe because some experiences transcend language." He pulled up a chair. "Or maybe you're overthinking it," says the man who literally makes a living reading subtext. He smiled, pressing a kiss to my temple. Fair point. The bond was still there, always there, but it had settled into something comfortable. Constant awareness of all three of them, wherever they were. Right now, Jameson was in a council meeting, debating the new alliance structures with other packs who were cautiously interested in our alternative approach. Cade was running training exercises with the younger wolves, teaching them that strength came in many forms. And River was here, anchoring me when the weight of being Luna threatened to overwhelm. "How are you really doing?" he asked quietly. "With all of this?" I considered the question. 3 months since the wedding that wasn't. 3 months of learning to lead a pack, to navigate politics, to balance 3 different relationships that somehow formed one complete bond. It was exhausting, challenging, sometimes overwhelming. "I'm happy," I said, surprised by how true it was. For the first time in my life, I'm genuinely happy. River's smile widened. "Good, you deserve happy." Cade appeared in the doorway, sweaty from training, and my wolf perked up at the sight of him. Still strange, having a wolf after 26 years without. But she was settling in, learning her place in this complicated pack structure. "Council's breaking for lunch," he announced. "Jameson wants all of us to eat together. Something about discussing the Blackwood Pack's proposal. Another pack wanting to learn about our structure. Another opportunity to prove that different didn't mean wrong." I saved my document and stood, River's hand finding mine automatically. Cade moved to my other side, and together we walked through the lodge that had stopped feeling like a prison and started feeling like home. Jameson met us in the dining room, still in his formal alpha attire, but his expression softened the moment he saw me. "There's my mate. 1 of 3. I corrected with a smile. "The most important one," he countered, pulling me close for a kiss that still made my heart race. "Hey," Cade protested. "That's favoritism. That's truth." But Jameson released me, gesturing to the table where food was already laid out. "Sit. Eat. Then we need to discuss the Blackwood situation." The meal was comfortable chaos, 3 alphas debating strategy while I ate and listened, and occasionally interjected with observations that always made them stop and reconsider. This was what partnership looked like. Not just romantic love, but genuine collaboration. Trust that my perspective mattered even when it challenged theirs. The Blackwoods want to visit, Jameson said finally. See our pack structure firsthand. It would be the first official acknowledgement from another territory that our bond is legitimate. Or it's a reconnaissance mission, Cade countered. Figure out our weaknesses. Or, River said, it's an opportunity to show that progress is possible. That tradition can evolve without destroying what matters. They all looked at me. What does our Luna think? Jameson asked. Our Luna. Still strange to hear. Still wonderful. I think, I said carefully, that we invite them, show them everything the good, the challenging, the complicated. Let them see that our bond works not because it's perfect, but because we're willing to do the work. And maybe they'll take that lesson back to their own pack. Jameson smiled, that proud expression that still made me melt. Then it's decided. We'll host the Blackwoods next month. After lunch, the brothers went back to their various responsibilities. I returned to the library, to my documentation, to the story I was telling about broken things becoming whole. But first, I walked out onto the balcony and looked over Thorn territory. 347 wolves depending on leadership that looked nothing like tradition said it should. 3 alphas learning to share power instead of competing for it. 1 Luna who'd gone from worthless to invaluable, and somewhere in the forest, 3 wolves who'd saved me from fire. I never did figure out which one saw me first that night, which one recognized the mate bond in that moment of rescue, but I'd learned it didn't matter, because they'd all saved me. In different ways, at different times, for different reasons, and I'd saved them right back. That's what love did. It saved, it transformed, it made impossible things possible, and I was living proof. The broken girl who became Luna, the dormant shifter who found her wolf, the woman who learned that sometimes, choosing all 3 wasn't greedy. Sometimes it was exactly what fate intended. If Cora's journey from rejection to Luna resonated with you, you'll love this book titled Rejected by the Alpha, a glow-up revenge romance, where the broken become powerful and fate gets rewritten. Grab your copy using the link in the description below. And if you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more emotional wolf shifter romances that prove being broken is just the beginning of becoming unstoppable.